was going to do this as one video, but actually it's turning out to be really long and rambly, so I'm going to cut it into a couple of videos. So, hello. So, Lizzie and I are going to talk about our breastfeeding journey so far, and she is 7 months old. So we have been breastfeeding for 7 months. She's happy playing on the floor right now. Yes, she is. So this video is the trials I faced breastfeeding so far. Now, I'm going to give a disclaimer. I love breastfeeding. I also hate it. I think it is by far the best thing to do. Disclaimer, if you want to formula feed, all good. If you physically can't, I'm so sorry, that's really, really rubbish. Yeah, do what you need to do for your lifestyle. It's your baby, it's your choice. Breast is best. That is the scientific medical doodad, and that was a choice I made with my daughter. So disclaimer done. These are the trials I've had. I found it very, very difficult, very, very difficult to breastfeed, but it is really, really worth doing in the long run. So the first trial that we had was that in the first 24 hours after a pretty horrific labour and losing Legion half of blood and not sleeping for 3 days and all that jazz, she wanted to feed solidly for the first 24 hours. And I wasn't expecting it because my eldest daughter didn't feed at all for her first 24 hours. So I was just like, oh my goodness. And I was so exhausted at one point that I felt like I physically couldn't hold her anymore. And this is after Richard had left and they felt like they... I know, and that he wasn't allowed to stay anymore. And I called a midwife and I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't physically hold her anymore. And so they took her and tried to settle her, and I cried like a baby because I felt like the worst mother in the world and just completely alone and exhausted. And then I cried again because 10 minutes later they brought her back because they couldn't settle her because she just wanted to feed, and I was so tired. I just wanted an hour, just 1 hour. But no, so it was a pretty traumatic first experience of breastfeeding with her. And then it was so painful because when a baby's first learning to latch, they're not fantastic at it. It's painful. Your nipples aren't used to it. It's just... And the way I describe the pain of it is like if you've got an open wound and someone runs their nails through it. It's that sort of a thing, especially when they first latch on. It gets better though. And then she basically fed solidly until my milk came in. My milk came in on day 2 because she fed so much. Normally it's like day 3, day 4, something like that. Day 2, because she was so constantly feeding, and I was so thankful. I mean, and this is the morning of day 2 as well. You know, I was so thankful that she, that when my milk came in, because her feeding slowed marginally then. And it was so bad at one point my friend jokingly said, oh, I could feed her because I'm still feeding my son, and she was pregnant as well, so she was producing milk. And I was like, you know, the thought process went through my head, oh my gosh, please feed the baby, please just take her for one feed just so I don't have to do it. But obviously I didn't do that, and it was just it was exhausting. And yes, so that is the first trial you face. It is painful. It is, I'm not gonna beat about the bush, it is very, very painful. But that goes after about 2 weeks on average. I think actually mine went a bit before that. And recline breastfeeding is something to look into to stop the initial pain, because I did recline breastfeeding. My lovely sister-in-law showed me that, and I did that in the hospital, and I think that's what shortened my length of time of it being so painful. At the time, it feels like it's never going to end. But it does, I promise it does. And yes, you are being noisy. Are you being noisy? You want to come and say hi? Come and say hi. Yes, my noisy baby. And she, yes, so that's the first trial. Second trial, I've spoken 4 minutes on the first trial. Second trial, clothing. Clothing is a nightmare. Right, so I'm not somebody that's happy and comfortable just having my boobs out on display at any given time. So I want to cover. So I had a cover and I used that, and that was great, but it was also, it's a faff trying it with more material and trying to get them latched on, and they're new, they don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it necessarily, and so it's really difficult doing that in the first instance. But again, it does get better, and they learn to latch on faster, you learn to do it faster, and you know, you just kind of do it. You also learn what works and what doesn't work. There's the theory of one up and one down, where you have one top that pulls up and one top that pulls down, and it kind of keeps you mostly covered. Again, that doesn't work fantastically at keeping your modesty when they're newborn, because they are it's hard to let them off, and they come off and on, and it's not great. Even now at this age, she sometimes just pulls off and goes, "Hi, mummy," you know. So it can be not so modest. The thing that changes about that is, again, firstly, with them latching on fast, they you're very only very briefly uncovered, because the head covers anything that your two tops aren't. Like I say, they do pull off, and for me it's still a lot of faffing with material, and I find that quite difficult. But the other options is to, you know, wear a cover, which she's not a massive fan of. I wear a cover still at church regardless of what I'm wearing, because I just feel like the modesty is required, but also there's a mothering room that I go in if she gets much of a faff, because she gets irritated with the cover now. So, but it's still a very worthwhile thing to have. So that's a pain, is the thing. Oh, and also working out bras, because I bought all these clippy bras. They're just a pain. They take too long. It's too hard to get to them for me. So I use ones that you can just pull down. But yeah, so that's good fun. I just wear my maternity ones. They're so soft and pliable that you can just put it down. And then the next trial is you have things like blocked ducts and mastitis and thrush. Yay. I haven't had mastitis. I'm very thankful for that, because that one is rubbish. But I have had blocked ducts and I have had thrush. We're lucky, because our thrush we got rid of very easily with a antifungal gel that the doctor gave us, and it just cleared up pretty fast. Whereas for some people I know, they have had nightmares getting rid of it. So yay. Blocked ducts are a pain. Now that is where it feels like it's bruised. I mean, it's tender to touch and things like that. And for that, you need to massage the breast whilst you are feeding, to try and release the block, basically. So that's joyful. And then you are noisy, but my biggest issue with breastfeeding is I have eczema. So they get very, very itchy, and if I scratch, then it cuts them. And when they're cut, it's back to that, you know, fingernails in wound sort of feeling, which can last quite a while, because it takes quite a long time for things to heal when you've got somebody sucking on them all the time. So that's pretty fun. So I'm going to be honest, when I'm pain-free breastfeeding is very slim and far between, and it's a very happy day when it is. It's a lot easier when your breastfeeding isn't painful. It is a lot easier. Oh, who's that? Is it you? Is it you? Other trials, obviously, are that only you can breastfeed. So you can't give a feed to nanny or daddy, yes, or anyone else, because you know, they don't have boobs. Really. So it can be a very overwhelming thought when you realise that you're the only one in the world that can sustain your little baby. And it means that you can't just get to go out when you want to go out. Because I formula fed my first daughter, and I could just give her dad the bottle, and I went out. You know, not often, but you know, every now and then. I would love to go. We have a girls' night once a month with my friends. We go out for 3-4 hours, just sit and chat. And I would love to do that child-free, but I can't, because she knows. I don't know how they do that. Somehow they know when I'm not there. She knows when I'm not there, and even though ordinarily she would sleep for 3 or 4 hours in the evening before, you know, I get a good 3-4 hours on her first sleep, that I should technically be able to go out. She knows. She wakes up. She screams blue murder, and she gets so distraught until I get home. So it's not worth leaving her. So that's something that you have to contend with. And then obviously there's the lack of sleep. And it is really, really, really difficult when you hear your formula-fed friends' babies are sleeping through the night. And pretty much all of them by 7 months are sleeping through the night. And I'm lucky if I get 3 hours. Like 3 hours is awesome. Sometimes she does like 5 hours. Like that happens on a rare occasion, and that's a very happy day. But most of the time it's 3 hourly. So those are the trials of breastfeeding, and they are real and they happen, which is why it is essential, if you're going to breastfeed, that you commit solidly to it. You cannot say, I may be going to breastfeed, I'll see how it goes. You won't succeed. You just won't. You can't. It's too difficult. But if you do succeed, there are several pluses. The first plus is that you never have to faff around with bottles and sterilising. Trust me, I've done that. It's much, much nicer not having to do that. Secondly, you have everything on tap. You don't have to worry about how many bottles you need to take out when you go out, whether you're going to have enough going home because you don't have enough, because it's right there on tap. She can have as much as she wants. So that's very handy. The other thing that is phenomenal is nights, feeding at night when you've got when you're breastfeeding, because okay, obviously you've got the extra wake ups, but when they do wake up, you just take them from their crib or their cot, whatever they're sleeping in. She sleeps in a co-sleeping cot, so she just slides across, put them on, slide them back, and your sleep isn't as massively disturbed. When you're formula feeding, you've got to get up, you've got to get the bottle, you've got to make it up, you've got to give it to the baby, and then you kind of have to sit up whilst you're doing that, and you don't want them to choke on the formula, and then you put them back. It's a much more woken up process than it is, because you can kind of doze while they're feeding before you put them back, or some people co-sleep and then they don't have to wake up at all, so that's nice. So it is far, far better at night, like far, far better at night, and especially when they're little, because they are going to wake up regardless of whether they're formula fed or not. So that is a massive, massive plus. And then the other pluses to breastfeeding are that it's lovely. Like, there is something about it that isn't necessarily describable, that is just really nice. And when your baby is on and they're looking up at you, it is just so lovely and so beautiful, and there's a closeness there that I can't really describe when you breastfeed your baby. And it's lovely. It's nice that you can breastfeed when they're sad, and it makes them happy again, and it's just lovely. And it's quite cute because they can show you very early on that they're hungry and they want food, because other than with crying, because they kind of just go good dog at you when they're hungry. They let you know because they kind of turn into you and they snuggle when they do want food. She's just chewing on my chin. But yeah, so that's another plus. And there's a wonderful sense of pride when you manage to do it, and when you have gotten through all those difficult times and you still kept going. There's a sense of pride when you get There's a sense of pride when you have them weighed and you know that I did that, I made that, like I grew her in my stomach for 9 whole months, and then I sustained her life on the outside, and everything that's made this huge baby thing is me, It's really nice. And yeah, it's very special. So, despite all of the troubles and the difficulties that there are, and, people need to be honest that it is tough, because otherwise people aren't going to succeed if they're just expecting this rosy thing to come along. It is hard work, but it is honestly very, very worth it. So that is our update, and I'm going to do one other video that lists my must-haves for breastfeeding as well. So that's my video, and I hope you enjoyed.